Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning to me. Good afternoon to you. Good evening, actually, most likely for our colleagues in the Philippines. So thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Christopher Goeski. I am a project lead with the company CRDF Global, which is an international organization with offices all around the world, including actually in Southeast Asia. We're opening up a new office there very shortly. But we have offices in the Ukraine. We have offices in Jordan. We have an office in the United States. We even have an office in Kazakhstan. As an organization, CRDF Global is committed to providing support to international best practice actors like Dr. Subhash this morning, who are actually working on critical issues that affect their day-to-day lives. And as an organization, we started back in the 1990s helping former Soviet scientists transition from the military nuclear space into a civilian-focused role. So as an organization, our goal is to do the right thing and to help international actors who know how to work on specific fields in their regions to do that best work. We are trying to support people who know the situation on the ground, who know the capabilities that are actually applicable in that region or in that country or broader region, I should say, and are able to actually implement positive change-focused solutions as opposed to dictating from on high what should be done, as can often be the case, unfortunately. So we are very happy to be here supporting this morning's webinar with Dr. Subhash's expertise in this field, both regionally and specific by country. We are very excited to be partnering with him on this initiative. Just a few quick housekeeping matters before I turn the meeting over to him, because we're here to hear from him, not me. We have set up the Zoom platform this morning so that as a participant, you are not able to unmute yourself unless we as the hosts allow you to do so. This is to ensure that everyone is able to hear the event clearly. We've all been on meetings, I'm sure, where someone has left their microphone on by mistake. Just happens. So if you have a question, we have also disabled the Q&A function to make it more of a streamlined process. You are able to use the chat function to be able to communicate questions to Dr. Subhash as you like. However he would like to do this, if he would like to answer questions in real time while doing his presentation, or if you would prefer to hold questions until the end, as there will be a Q&A session if people wish to ask questions, you may put your question at any time and it will not be deleted, forgotten, removed, anything like that. Anything that is put into the chat will stay there until we are able to access it. So feel free to put in your questions whenever you'd like. And finally, Dr. Subhash will be sharing his screen. And as I said, everything will be recorded this morning. So if anyone has any questions about any technical process, I will be not sharing my screen or my camera to ensure that Dr. Subhash is the main focus of this morning's event, but I will be here throughout the entire time, not one, that's a silly statement. So if you have a concern, if you're not able to hear something, if you're just wanting to know a little bit more about the topic or even about CRDF Global, you can feel free to send me a message either just in the general chat or directly to me. I will be here the entire time to help you. That is the goal for me this morning, to make sure this process moves as smoothly as possible for everyone and we're able to get the most out of the presentation this morning. So, Dr. Subhash, the floor is yours. Please feel free to get started whenever you're ready. And I think you tested your screen already, so hopefully you should be okay and ready to go. You are just on mute also. I just wanted to flag for you before you get started.
Christopher, you can see my slide?
We can see your slides and we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Christopher, for your kind words. Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you virtually. I hope one day we can meet face to face. Thank you very much for taking time out from your busy schedule to attend this webinar. I highly appreciate it. So in this webinar, which is a part of remote training for bioresearchers and biolaboratory supporting staff from Southeast Asian countries on biosecurity practices. So I just want to highlight this training program contains 3 parts. First part is a webinar. Part 2 is a non-synchronous online course. And part 3 is a tabletop exercise. So as a part of the webinar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share an overview of biosecurity best practices, focusing on know your customer and due diligence practices to safeguard biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. So the main purpose of this webinar is to create the awareness among the participants about biosecurity best practices. So I will cover the essential elements of biosecurity as a part of awareness and from a bio risk management perspective. I will also highlight how the know your customer and due diligence practices are important in safeguarding biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. I have divided this webinar content into 3 parts. The first part is the biological threat landscape. So you will learn the importance of integrated virus management and various elements of biosecurity. In the second part, doesn't matter you are in academia or industry, you will learn how you can play your role in preventing the proliferation of biosecurity sensitive biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. So in this second part, I will highlight the challenges in biological supply chains, then different methods or tactics used by nefarious state actors or bad actors and what they want to achieve. So I will also highlight the know your customer best practices in the biotechnology industry. In the last part of the seminar, you will learn about the different principles we call high reliability principles to make your organization highly reliable, how to identify the red flags, and in the process, how due diligence is important, which can help to boost the biosecurity in your organization or company to make sure that you are protecting your biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. So let's get started with the first part of the webinar. So as you can see on the slide, so in a schematic diagram, I presented the whole spectrum of biological risk. So you can see the different elements. So let's start with the natural outbreaks of diseases or pathogen spillover. You know, in each and every country, there are a number of outbreaks of the human diseases or the spillover, including this ongoing global pandemic. So these natural outbreaks, I mean, each and every natural outbreak do have a potential to become an epidemic. And if the epidemic is not controlled in time, it can become a global pandemic. So if you see the, for example, I want to give you an example of zoonotic diseases, because this one is perfectly fitting in the natural outbreaks. So if you see the, CDC data, so CDC data suggests that around 2.5 billion people become sick because of the zoonotic diseases. And globally, 2.7 million people die because of the zoonotic diseases. So you can understand the gravity of the problem. You can understand consequences of the natural outbreaks or the spillover. Okay, so the just want to give an example of ongoing global pandemic. As of yesterday, 5th of May 2022, according to World Health Organization, 6,246,828 people lost their life because of this global pandemic, which is a natural outbreak we consider. Okay, so on the spectrum of the biological risk, the second element is the emerging threats. So I want to give you an example of antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance is a very big problem. I don't know whether you are able to realize it or not, but if you see the what's happening at a global level, this one is one of the major challenge in front of the global community. You will be surprised to know that, excuse me, around 700,000 people die every year because of the antimicrobial resistance. And this many people are dying every year, and the United Nations, international agencies, and the experts strongly believe that around 10 million people will die every year because of the antimicrobial resistance if the global community doesn't act in time. And this prediction means 10 million people will die every year by 2050. So you can understand the importance of this emerging threat for the humanity and importance of preventing the misuse of the antibiotics or antimicrobial drugs. So now I'm going to talk about a very important topic, the laboratory setting, because in laboratories, you handle the human pathogens, you handle animal pathogens, you handle the plant pathogens. I mean, the pathogens which can infect different domesticated crops. And the bad actors can take advantage, and there is always possibility they can misuse these pathogens to achieve their goals. So in a laboratory, we handle pure cultures. So if there is any laboratory accident or negligence or sabotage or vandalism, so these microorganisms can escape and we can have a big problem. So biosecurity is very, very important from laboratory virus management also, okay? And on top of that, so the ultimate focus of this remote training program is the behavior of the bad actors, revisionist states. So they can misuse these biological agents or biological material, and it can be used as a biological weapon. And the use can be done deliberately. Just now I have given an example of ongoing pandemic. So next pandemic could be from the laboratories or because of the deliberate misuse by the bad actors. Who knows? That's why biosecurity best practices are extremely important. So please take the note. Okay, so I have not highlighted this another emerging threat, which is also going to become a part of spectrum of the biological risks. So this cyber biosecurity, it's a new emerging discipline coming at the intersection of the cyber security and biosecurity. So I will talk more about it after some time. So question is, how ready is your organization or company for cyber biosecurity? So think about it. You don't need to answer. Okay, so in order to mitigate the biosecurity risks, to make sure that we are protecting each other and global community is safe, we have to put the right control measures in place to mitigate the risks. So for example, to prevent the or to control the spread of the diseases of the natural outbreaks or spillover, so the government agencies, the healthcare workers, international agencies such as the World Health Organization, so they are putting the right control measures to make sure that the diseases will not spread from one location to another or from one country to another country. That's why the international health regulations treaty comes in picture. So as well as when the people are sick because of the pathogen, which is not responding to the antimicrobial drugs, so people go in hospital, they take the treatment. So I mean, that one is a public health domain. Okay, so the next one is biosafety. Biosafety in order to protect, because each and every country do have the laboratories and we handle the dangerous pathogens, biological materials. And in order to protect the researchers from biological risks, we put the right control measures, and these control measures to mitigate the risk are called as biosafety controls. Then at the same time, we have a threat of the bad actors. It can be an insider from your organization or could be an outsider. So in order to mitigate that risk from biosecurity perspective, so we put the right control measures, and that control measures or these control measures are called as biosecurity. And as I mentioned, so this new domain is coming up, cyber biosecurity. So when we are taking the appropriate control measures to protect your digital information of your organization, to make sure that the intruders will not penetrate your computer network, they will not steal the data, and they will not misuse it. So the control measures, those are applied. So that one we call cyber biosecurity control measures. So bear in mind, when we are talking about the biorisk management, biorisk management covers both biosafety and biosecurity. But as a whole, when you are looking at all the, full spectrum of the biological risk, and based on your robust risk assessment, when you are putting the right control measures to mitigate the risks in different domains, so this approach is called as integrated biorisk management. Some experts or some of my colleagues call it as a comprehensive biorisk management. So when I talk with the audience, I always use this integrated biorisk management from my perspective. Okay, so just want to highlight this one, because when I talk with the students or some stakeholders or some of my contacts, they always get confused about the fundamental difference between the biosafety and biosecurity. That's why purposely I have added this slide. So I want to just give some examples to make sure that you clearly understand the difference between biosafety and biosecurity. For example, in the laboratories while working, we use different personal protective equipment. So that one is a biosafety control measure, which is specific to make sure that we will not get exposed to the pathogens. Then we use biosafety cabinets in the laboratories. So that one is also another example of biosafety control measures. If you take the biosecurity domain, so for example, we have to protect the biological materials, equipment, and knowledge which we have in the organization or company from the bad actors. I mentioned before, it can be, a bad actor can be from inside or could be from outside. So for example, we use biometric system, fingerprint to verify the identity of that person who is going inside the laboratory, and how long he is staying, and when he is going out. That's why we use CCTV camera and motion sensitive cameras. Another example is bars on the windows. So people will not come during the night, enter inside the laboratory, and they will not take the equipments or biological materials or other sensitive information. However, there are some similarities. Those are important both for biosafety and biosecurity. So for example, personnel management. So that one is important both for biosafety and biosecurity. Another one is a proper shipping procedures is also important for biosafety and biosecurity. So broadly speaking, the fundamental difference between these biosafety risks, biosecurity risks, and cyber biosecurity risks. So biosafety is all about protecting the laboratorians or researchers in the laboratory when they are doing research in the laboratory. So to make sure that they are not getting exposed unintentionally or by accident. So biosecurity is all about protecting the biological materials, equipment, and knowledge from the bad actors or bad people or revisionist states. So the idea is to make sure that we will not lose any biological materials or valuable items which could be misused to prevent the theft, misuse, as well as intentional unauthorized release. And in case of the cyber biosecurity, we want to protect the digital information to make sure that revisionist states or the bad actors will not utilize this sensitive information, and they will not misuse to boost their biological weapons of mass destruction enabling program. So these are the fundamental differences between all these three domains. So ladies and gentlemen, so to safeguard the biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, biosecurity awareness is extremely important among all the stakeholders. Those are working in academia, those are working in industry, those are in the biological supply chain. It is extremely important. So when you will go back after attending this webinar, so you should talk with your colleagues, you should talk with your staff, you should talk with your associates, and promote the importance of biosecurity, because it's extremely important for our safety. I'm using the term our, it's not a one country's problem or one organization's problem. It's a collective action needs to be taken, and that's why biosecurity is very, very important for our each other's security. So implementation of biosecurity best practices is essential because if we are ignorant, simple loopholes may be there in the organization or company. Bear in mind, simple loopholes can result into a disaster. I just want to give you an example. For example, you know what happened in 2001 in United States of America or USA. In 2001, after the attack by the terrorists, so anthrax attacks happened, and it was worst in the history of the United States of America. In that one, 5 Americans lost their life, 17 became very sick, and it became possible because of the loopholes in the biosecurity. Bear in mind, so simple loopholes in biosecurity can lead to a disaster. So that's why biosecurity is very, very important. And bear in mind, it can happen anywhere. It can happen in any country. It can happen on any continent. So that's why biosecurity is very, very important for local, national, regional, and global biosecurity. So when you are working in a laboratories, it doesn't matter you are working in an industrial setting or academic setting. So you have lots of biological materials, important equipments, those can be misused, as well as you have sensitive information. So I have just listed some of the items here, but you have plenty of items in the laboratories which needs a protection, which can be misused. So for example, if you are working on some important project on human nervous system or human immunology or a similar type of project, you will have some sensitive information. So you will have a DNA sequences information. You will have extracted genetic material, DNA, RNA, protein, or their sequences, as well as biological waste, as well as experimental animals, as well as you will have different types of the stocks which you need to maintain for your research purpose. So broadly speaking, so you have to think about what is there in your laboratory or company or organization which has a dual applications. So what I mean is we have to make sure that we are identifying the items or the equipments or the valuable material which has dual applications. So that one will help you to protect dual use biological materials, equipment, and knowledge from your organization. So but the loopholes in the biosecurity is always exploited by the bad actors. We can say revisionist proliferator states. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss a little bit about the elements of biosecurity. Excuse me. So elements of biosecurity, for example, traditionally when we manage the biosecurity in an institution or university or company, so physical security, personnel management, material control, and accountability, transport security, and information security. So these are the fundamental elements of biosecurity. Those are very, very important for each organization as well as company. So these 5 elements are also called as 5 pillars of biosecurity. I'm going to just highlight a little bit about each element just to pass the essence of individual element. So you take the example of physical security. So this physical security is aimed, the ultimate aim of physical security is to deny the unauthorized access to facilities or equipment or resources which you have in your facility. And this one directly, indirectly helps you to protect biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information from the biosecurity perspective. So this one is just, I think most of you may be familiar with this. So, you know, in any organization or any company or any facility where the biological agents are handled, biological agents, especially the high risk level of the high risk biological agents. So in that case, the design of the lab is done systematically. So there can be a 3 layers, so protected area. So anybody can, those are permitted, can go inside and can go there. Then a limited area. So it's furthermore some more restrictions. Some limited people can go, and at the center exclusion area. So they are only the authorized people staff can go. So that's why we use biometric scanners, ID card readers, lock and key. So to make sure that we are protecting what is there, in exclusion area. It may be a dangerous pathogen, it may be a biological material, toxins, some equipment, as well as some sensitive information. So the second element is a personnel management. So the main purpose of this personnel management is to ensure that only authorized people that are given access to sensitive biological materials will have that access. And this personnel management helps to reduce the risk of theft, fraud, scientific misconduct. And this one is very, very important from administrative control perspective. And as a whole, it boosts the biosecurity of the company, the organization. Okay, number 3 element is a material control and accountability. So we are talking about the biological material. So this one is, others are important, but this one from the this training perspective, I want to give an emphasis. So the purpose of this material control and accountability is to make sure that we have a real-time knowledge about what is there in the laboratory, where it is, and who is responsible for it. So that one is very important. If something goes wrong, so that person who is responsible should be able to answer the questions. And it also helps in creating the environment that discourages theft and misuse by establishing the oversight. Oversight is very important. Okay, trusting is good, verification is important, and the zero trust attitude, okay, in biosecurity domain. So this material control and accountability also promotes the culture of responsibility, and it is important. We should promote the culture of responsibility in our organization or company to make sure that there are no any insider threats or bad actors which can misuse the biological materials or equipment or sensitive information. Number 4 is a transport security. This one is considered as a 4th pillar of the biosecurity. So this transport security is extremely important, because it doesn't matter you are doing fundamental research or you are doing applied research or you are working in diagnostic laboratories. So many times, depends on what you are doing. So you have to transfer the high-risk biological material from one place to another place, or maybe from your laboratory to collaborator's laboratory, or from your facility to another facility within your country, or maybe from one country to another country. So for generating the data to complete the project with the collaborator, you need to transfer high-risk biological materials. And same goes for the public health labs and diagnostic labs to have a precise diagnosis of that outbreak or that pathogen. So samples are sent in a neighboring country or nearby facilities, because not all countries have the facility. So always diagnostic labs send the samples in a nearby facility or neighboring country, or sometimes it can be on other continent. So this transport can happen across the international borders, or within a country, or within a facility. Here I want to remind you that even though transport is within your facility or within your country, you should not take it lightly. I told you before, simple loopholes in biosecurity can lead to the disaster. So please take the note. Okay, so the 5th element, which is a 5th pillar of the biosecurity, is the information security. So this information security is very, very important. I'm talking, don't get confused with the cyber biosecurity. Okay, so this one is, I'm talking about traditional virus management. Traditional biosecurity management. So in this case, so because for example, laboratory manager might be having a list of inventory, or having some sensitive information, information about the stocks, about the pathogens, blah blah blah. So that one is in the locker, which is locked all the time. So somebody should not come and take that information and misuse it. So information protection is very important. So it's information security provides the assurance that the sensitive and valuable information stored in the laboratory is protected from the theft or diversion. So failure in information security can have severe consequences, and in the process, we never know what can happen. So controlling the important documents as well as the information which you have there in the laboratory, either in the notebooks or either on your computer, protection of that one is important. And this one means how is your robust, how is your biosecurity risk assessment done? So if it's a robust, then you should be looking at your policies of the company or organization and implement the policy in line with the robust biosecurity risk assessment. Okay, so for safeguarding the dual-use biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, so these 5 pillars of biosecurity, what I mean is physical security, personnel management, material control and accountability, transport security, and information security are equally important. So I'm going to change the gear and I'm going in a second part. So in second part, now I'm going to discuss the role of academia and industry in preventing the proliferation of biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. So let me start. So if you look at this picture, so this one is just a diagrammatic representation which highlights the whole biological supply chain. You may be working in a manufacturing sector. Maybe you are working in a warehouse as a manager. Maybe you are working in a transport sector. So doesn't matter where you are working. So these logistic operators, supplier, customer, and those are stakeholders of this biological supply chain. It is very, very important for us to educate them about the biosecurity best practices, because if everybody implements biosecurity best practices, it will help to significantly reduce the biosecurity risk, and that is good for everybody. So we can protect ourselves, we can protect our organization, we can protect our company, we can protect community, country, and it's good for the global community. Okay, so on the previous slide, this slide, I'm making one statement: biological supply chains are always vulnerable. And the main reason why this biological supply chain is vulnerable is the poor biosecurity best practices or level of understanding. So my point is here, my important point here is we have to educate the stakeholders. We have to educate all the stakeholders of this biological supply chain to make sure that nothing will go wrong, and we will have a biosecurity risk and accepted level. So this one is, I think you might be familiar, because when we do the biosecurity risk assessment in the laboratory or for organization, we follow these steps. I think I'm not going in detail, but what I'm trying to highlight here, when we do the biosecurity risk assessment for the institution or laboratory, generally we don't give due importance for the risks involved in biological supply chain. So when later on in the future, when you are doing a biosecurity risk assessment for your laboratory or organization, you make sure that you are giving a due importance for the risks those are involved in biological supply chain, because that one is very, very important. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight challenges in biological supply chains. So there are, a number of challenges in biological supply chain. So some examples I'm highlighting. So for example, biological agents can be replicated in short time. So you take any microorganism, bacterial culture or viruses or fungus. So in short time, you can replicate. If you take the example of a bacteria, within 3 minutes, it replicates itself. So when we are putting stocks in the laboratory, generally we don't count the total number of cells in the glycerol stock. So volume is also approximate. So this is one of the challenge. So we have to be careful. Another challenge is microorganisms are extremely small. We cannot see with the naked eyes. And if somebody is carrying in a pocket or in a book or somewhere, we cannot detect them like a metal detector. So because they are small, we cannot see them, we cannot smell them, and we cannot detect them. So this one is another challenge. And furthermore, biological agents can be isolated from natural samples. What I mean is they are found everywhere. So you can isolate from, the bad actor can isolate from the infected animals or the person who is infected with the disease or infected crops or the plants, and can have the pure culture and can be misused. So then in order to protect these biological agents or the equipment or the sensitive information, so we have to make sure that we are bringing in the culture of change or cultural change. So everybody can behave in a responsible manner, or a culture of responsibility, culture of accountability. And good communication can always help to bring all the stakeholders on the same page. Okay, so some of the issues in the biological supply chain are because you know how the banks take care of their money from the ATM machines or from the main stock or in their main office headquarters. So they take the proper precautions and protect their assets, money. So but laboratory managers or laboratory management generally never think about they need proper security to protect themselves, to protect the biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information. So that's why we need to educate the people. We need to have a cultural change. So that one will boost the biosecurity, and it will help to have a global biosecurity. So on top of that, other points I want to highlight is same goes for the researchers or the laboratorians, those are working in laboratories. So they also don't think by doing a 360-degree analysis. So maybe they are working on a human pathogen or animal pathogen, but they don't think that their pathogen can be an attractive target for the bad actors. So we need to that's why we need to educate the people, those are working in laboratories also. And in academic setting, I know because I have spent almost 14 years in academia. So in academia, we need to talk openly, we need to collaborate, we need to communicate with collaborators and partners. But sometimes this openness or this information can be also misused and can result into complications. And in the hospital settings or in a clinical setting, so situation is little bit different as compared to the traditional research laboratories, because there in a hospital or clinical setting, security does not typically consider the biological materials. So that's why I always talk with my colleagues and friends. So when we are talking with the people, so these people, those are working in clinical setting or in hospitals, they should not be excluded, they should be on the same page. So because the loopholes in the system can be systematically used by the bad actors or revisionist states. So now I'm going to discuss a little bit about the methods and frequent pathways those are used by the revisionist proliferator states. So common pathways or the common methodologies include open source information targeting. So open source information, for example, as a researcher, as a scientist, maybe you are publishing proudly the research findings which you have on human nervous system or immunology or blah, blah, whatever it is. So, but that information can be misused by the bad actors. It can be a valuable resource for the bad actors. So what we are publishing could serve as a source of information for these bad actors. So when organizations or colleges or universities or Ministry of Science and Technology, when they are putting some information on their website to proudly talk about their achievements and what capabilities they have, So we have to strike a balance between marketing products or technologies and how to protect the sensitive information, because the information which is on the websites of the organizations or companies or ministries can be misused by the bad actors or the revisionist states. Okay, the second method is the cyber-enabled methods. I will highlight more after a few moments. So cyber-enabled methods, because we are all of us are connected with the global cyber network. So nicely, quietly sitting in any country or any corner of the world, somebody can penetrate your network and can steal the data, can steal the information. I will talk about that one in a few moments. Okay. So some other common methodologies is methodologies used by the revisionist states is a creation of front companies. So front companies are just like a normal companies, but the purpose of establishing front companies is completely different, because they want to get hold of some restricted items. They want to get hold of the trade restricted items, and these items could be valuable biological material, important equipments, as well as sensitive information or the technology which can be utilized to boost the biological or chemical weapons programs. So when you are dealing with any company, you have to be careful about with who you are dealing, whether it's a front company or it's a real company business. Okay, so then mergers and acquisitions. So some companies, those are blacklisted or those are having a bad history. So to cover up, there will be always some mergers and acquisitions. So when you want to deal with any partner or organization or company, so you should dig deeper to find out more information about that company or organization, so you can get information about that organization, and you will not go into their net or the web, because once you are in the trap, escaping for you will be difficult, and you can be a part of the biosecurity breach, and you can land into a very serious trouble. So that's why educating the stakeholders is very, very important. Another methodology is a development of research partnerships. So because as I mentioned, the research collaboration is very important. So, but sometimes the bad actors or the agents or the institutions, those are working for the bad actors or revisionist states, they can get good researchers under the pretext or under the umbrella of research partnership, and once that research partnership established, so later on they can misuse information or technology or equipment or biological materials. Okay, the another methodology is a false representations. So we know the information is wrong, but purposely they give the wrong information to trap somebody, to get hold of the restricted items, to get hold of the trade restricted valuable items. And fifth one is a financial incentives. So for example, it's not all the time case, but you have to be aware of this one. For example, if somebody, a research scholar, is getting an invitation to come in our lab, and can you join as a postdoc, or can you work as a scientist or researcher, and they are giving a very attractive package to work there. So generally the scientist or researcher will think, I'm getting more financial benefits, why don't I should go? So these types of the traps can be there. So these are the different methodologies. Those are used by the bad actors and biological researchers and biological laboratory supporting staff, as well as stakeholders of the biological supply chain should be aware of this one as a part of awareness about the biosecurity best practices. So the main goals of the programs of the nefarious states or the bad actors is to evade the detection, to evade the trade restrictions, because you might be aware of different conventions, resolutions, and treaties at international level. So, but these bad actors undermine that, and to get hold of the biological materials, equipment, and some sensitive information, they always find the way to evade the detection, to evade the trade restriction. So on top of that, because of advancement in communication technology and computer sciences and Internet of Things, so for example, TTPs, but I mean it's a cyber techniques, tactics, and procedures. So that one is also, I mean it's advances in computer science and communication is good. It's making our life better, and we are solving, it's a good for the advancement, but at the same time, the bad actors can misuse it, and that one is also a threat. So new vulnerabilities, for example, if you take any biotechnology company, DNA sequencing facility, maybe you are doing a very important sequencing of any dangerous pathogens and the whole genome sequence, or the pathogenic gene sequence is there, or maybe some information related to the genome editing is there. So we are heavily relied on digital technologies and storage of the sensitive information on our computers or in our office computers or in your computer laboratories. So this cyber-enabled means becomes a tool for the proliferator states, and they can penetrate the computer network, and they can steal the sensitive information to misuse it or to achieve their goals. So the ultimate aim of doing all this is to acquire the restricted or unauthorized access to dual use trade restricted biological or maybe chemical items, which they can use for a number of reasons. So their objective means what they want to achieve by doing all these things. So because their objective is to boost their capabilities of the military. So maybe they want to develop or resume or modernize an offensive program, which is for the biological or chemical weapons. Or maybe they want to enhance their defensive position. So as a result of that one, they will have always upper hand. And at the on one hand, they are working on a dangerous pathogen. They are cultivating on large scale, preparing for some bad intention, and at the same time they are having a vaccine for that one. So that means intention is not good. So for that purpose, the biosecurity is very, very important for the global community. Okay, so in addition to that one, the aim could be to get an illicit benefits in sense of the economic benefits. And at the same time, they can have a first-most advantage for their strategic partners from the military standpoint of view. And because of that one, they want to get hold of the tangible or not tangible dual-use trade-restricted items. And this one is one of the global issues now. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight a little bit some examples. I'm not going in detail because of the time limitation. So, but I want to highlight some examples of advanced persistent threat scenarios. So, advanced persistent threat scenarios, it's something malware or specially created program which can penetrate the computer network of the targeted organization and stays inside the network for the months or years or beyond that one, until and unless that organization detects the presence of that malware or that program which is sent by the bad actor or by the revision state or their agents or their organizations, those are working for them. So in order to do that, so what they do, first of all, they find the open source information which can enable or which can facilitate the technical or non-technical means for gaining access to the IT system of targeted organization. So for example, some of the organizations, those are working on cutting edge research, genome editing and dangerous pathogens to solve the problem for the human health. But for the bad actors or for the revision states or their agents, so if they get hold of this information, it can be misused and we can have a disaster. So in order to penetrate the network, they can approach by different means. So for example, when there is a request for quotation, so maybe somebody can approach on behalf of bad actors, and they can communicate with you either through the email or phone calls. And once phone call starts, then email exchange, and through the email you will send the information, they will send the information, and they can get hold of your computer network. So some examples I have stated here, I'm not going in detail. So but the ultimate idea is, I mean, they under different pretext, so they want to penetrate your computer network, and as a result, later on, once the data is harvested, they can use it systematically to achieve their goals. And sometimes, because nowadays all of us are on the social media platforms, LinkedIn or Facebook or other, just to name some. So there are a number of platforms, and generally when we get a request from somebody, we don't check much. So just we accept the request because your number of friends is increasing. So from biosecurity perspective, that one is a dangerous. So you can be in a trap of somebody who is working on behalf of bad actors, the agents of the bad actors. Okay, so in addition to that one, I mean, when there is a, under the pretext of service or purchasing or any type of the dealing, so they can send the malware through a link. Maybe it's embedded in a document. So once you download the document, especially they will target the person who have access to the management system. Management system means, for example, procurement department or purchasing department or purchasing officer will be targeted. And once the purchasing officer clicks the link or downloads that attachment sent by that agent or that bad actor, so automatically the malware will get installed in your system, and that one is the beginning. So beginning means systematic, because it's a purchasing officer's computer. So from there, systematically they can harvest all important information, and they will have access to your IT system of your organization. So as a result of that one, they will have access to the transport management system, purchase management system, laboratory management system, and all the other systems. So whatever they want to harvest, they can harvest the information from the system. So that is the specialty of the advanced persistent threat programs, or the tactics used by the bad actors or the revisionist states, which is very, very, concern for the global community from the perspective of the proliferation of the biological and chemical weapons. So then, in addition to that one, here I have highlighted some points. So, for example, the stolen identity, the name of the logistics, those are harvested. I mean, the contact information or the emails, those are harvested from the system after penetrating the network. So that one can be misused systematically. So for example, they can get in contact with the logistic services provider to your organization. So they can send a request by email and requesting the quotation, because they knows what you are buying from that particular logistic service provider. And as a result of that one, they can go well in advance by using this information, and they can try to achieve their goals, to get hold of biosecurity sensitive biological materials, equipment, information by following these tactics. So as I mentioned before, so this malware, once it's installed in your IT system or in your computer network, so it stays hidden for a long time and always finds the opportunity. Is there any opportunity or the loopholes or the new information? So that one is transferred to the master, who is sitting in another country or another continent, doesn't matter. I mean, where is that agent or revisionist proliferator states agent. Okay, so the identity of the awardees, for example, if the some organizations are buying hundreds and hundreds of computers, So if they are getting well in advance by using the stolen information to the computer provider, so who is providing the software codes for assembling all these computers, so they can embed their malware or their program, and on the regular basis, data can be transferred to the master. The agent or the person who is behind the scene. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, so this advanced persistent threats is one of the major concern, and there are a number of cases in public domain. So the stolen credentials can be used fraudulently to achieve the goals, and that is the one of the aim of the bad actors or the proliferators. So in order to protect our biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information, we have to be extremely careful, and that's why the cyber biosecurity is picking up very rapidly. This new discipline is growing very rapidly, and it's extremely important for the security at all the levels. Okay, so with this, I think I will proceed to the next section. So the next section I want to highlight the importance of know your customer best practices, because we want to make sure that nothing will go wrong, and we are taking the necessary steps to mitigate the biosecurity risk. So it doesn't matter you are working in R&D, or you are working in a human resource, or you are working in a purchasing office or manufacturing, or anywhere in a biological supply chain. So you are dealing with system, and you are part of the network, and you are also communicating online with a number of partners or collaborators, or communication can be business to business, or can be business to customer, and in the process somebody can exploit the information which you have, what you have on your computer. So know your customer best practices are very important. So as a stakeholder of the biological supply chain, as an individual, or as a company, or as an organization, so you should understand the regulatory landscape as well as the risk, because the relevant regulatory mechanism of your country, or your state, or your regional authorities. So you should be aware of the best practices in your sector. Doesn't matter if you are in transport sector. So what are the best practices? If you are in a manufacturing sector and somebody is asking for the equipments, high-end equipments, so what are the best practices? So that one you need to understand. Then because as a biological researcher, or as a company, or as a research institution, you are a partner of government in preventing the proliferation of biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information. So don't forget, because it's not only about you. Your actions do matters, and it will have the consequences. So always make sure that you are not ignorant about the biosecurity. Then as an individual, or as a company, or as an organization, you should also understand the compliance risk exposure. There are a number of benefits for the organization, companies, as well as individuals of compliance. So if you take any example of any biosecurity breach, and if there is any disaster, something happened in your organization or somewhere, so when you are digging deeper, and when you will realize, so always the non-compliance will be the root cause. So compliance is very, very important, keep in mind, because the non-compliance is the main reason why the different disasters or different biosecurity issues pops up. Okay, so if you are working in a research setting, either in academia or industry, so you want to collaborate with the other institutions or companies, and before you establish the collaboration, it is very important to make sure that what is the intention of the collaborator, what you want to achieve. So just for the sake of the promotion, or just to show you have a collaboration, or just to show to get some points for promotion, you should not go for the collaboration. There should be some real purpose, and it should be in compliance with the know your customer best practices. So fundamental questions you can ask, for example, what are the items or technologies to be used in the collaboration? Another fundamental question you can ask is where are items or technologies going? Do you need to transfer some equipments to the collaborators laboratory? Do you need to transfer some biological agents in the collaborators laboratory? So as a result of asking this fundamental question, you will get an idea, the intention of that collaborator who is pushing you to collaborate on certain research projects. Then in addition to that one, another question, who will access the item or technologies, and what is the end use or application? So if you ask these fundamental questions, you will get an idea. And this one is very, very important. This one is just highlight I'm showing how the know your customer best practices are important to protect yourself, your organization, your company, and as a whole country also. Okay, so you should involve the right stakeholders while doing the collaboration, for example, research administrator and stakeholders from your company or organization, so to make sure that you will not do any mistakes. So know your best practices are extremely important, so please note. Okay, so on top of that, in any organization or company, if the staff or employees, if they are not competent enough, then that there is another problem. So time to time in your organization or company, make sure that you are organizing the training programs to promote the biosecurity best practices, know your customer practices, best practices, due diligence best practices. So as a result of that one, your staff will become competent, skillful, and they will perform better in the organization of company, and you can reduce significantly the biosecurity risk. And they will be familiar with these fundamental questions which I have listed here. I will not go one by one because of time limitation. So ladies and gentlemen, so now I'm going in a third part of the webinar. And in this part, I'm going to discuss establishing a resilient, high reliability organization. This one is extremely important for each and every company, because the ultimate aim of each and every company or organization is to have a good reputation. People should trust you. People should think you are reliable. So from that perspective, when you are thinking about the biological supply chain, because we are talking about educating the people and stakeholders, those are working in a biological supply chain. So identifying the red flags is very, very important, and that one can be done by using techniques such as, for example, know your customer, due diligence, and some other practices. So the loopholes in biological supply chain will not be exploited if we promote the biosecurity best practices, and if everybody is fully aware of the what can happen if there is a biosecurity breach. So if everybody is on the same page, so as a result of that one, we can significantly reduce the biosecurity risk. And as a result of that one, we can protect the biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, which is important from biosecurity perspective. So in order to identify the red flags means something is not quite right, or means something is fishy, something, I mean, the purpose or the intention of that party is not good. So in order to identify these red flags, so as a part of the know your customer program, so we systematically collect the information, screen the information, and record the information. So because this information serves as a foundation for you to take a decision which is based on the information. Okay, and as a part of the due diligence program, so systematically we monitor the information collected, as well as the monitoring of the partners, collaborators, as well as the customer, and time to time evaluate them and verify time to time whenever it is needed, to make sure that we are dealing with the right company, right entity, right organization, or the right individual. So this know your customer program and due diligence program is extremely important for each and every organization, company, and entity. Please keep in mind. So I don't know how is the situation in your organization. So, but you can talk with your management, or you can talk with your boss, or you can talk with your colleagues and see how you can improve know your customer program or due diligence program in your organization or company. So as a part of identifying red flags, so identifying red flags, if your program, know your customer and due diligence program is robust and it's working properly, so you should be able to identify the red flags very easily. And in the process, it's not a rocket science, it's quite straightforward. So what you have to do is you have to verify the identity of your customer or supplier or service provider, then confirm the legitimacy of their intended purchase or service or products, then perform on a regular basis the monitoring of the customer, supplier, or the service provider, and have some bottom line where you can define what is normal and what is not normal. So because this one will help you to identify the changes in the existing customers or your customers or your entities or your collaborators. Those are already in your system, those are in your database, and based on that one, so your officers or your staff or your employees will be able to identify the red flags, and that one can protect your organization, company, as well as yourself. And this one is extremely important. Please keep in mind. Okay, so here I'm just giving some highlights. So when you are dealing with a logistic operator, some operators or logistic operators may be in your database. So if existing service provider or the operators, those are already weighted and approved and they are in your system, and they are not a restricted entity, they are not on a sanctions list, it is not located in a restricted country, it is their shipments are not going in a restricted countries, and they have a systematic chain of custody to take care of the biological materials, equipment, and they have know your customer and due diligence programs in place. So there is a risk is very low, so you can accept these operators without there is no reason why acceptance should be delayed. But in case if the logistic operator is new, and if the name is similar or matching with the restricted entity, or if the address is similar or matching with the restricted entity, or if their shipments are going in restricted countries, they have a history of significant loss, theft, or if they don't have know your customer and due diligence programs in place, so that means something is seriously wrong. So you need to take your own time, and you have to do due diligence, you have to dig deeper, and you have to find out more information before you take the decision, because you can be in trouble. So when you are gathering information about the customer, here customer, keep in mind, customer can be individual, customer can be entity, organization, or biotech company, or small enterprise. Doesn't matter which type of customer you have, but when you are collecting the information about the customer, so simply you can go on their website, you can collect the essential information, you can verify the their physical location, shipping destination. You can also find out reliable information about the organization, whether it's an academic institution, or it's a federal organization, or it's a non-profit organization, or it's a full commercial entity for the profit. Then activities, if you are digging deeper into what type of activities they are doing, whether they are doing research or they're doing production of the chemicals or the therapeutic compounds, they are doing a manufacturing of the equipments or diagnostic testing. So that one can also give you an idea about that customer. Then areas of work. So what type of work they are doing, whether they are working on a genetics, if it's a genetics, whether it's a human genetics or plant genetics. So you can dig deeper, because you should have a attitude, keep on asking the question, so you can get more information, you can gather more information. As a result of that one, you know your customer, and due diligence will become robust. So if they are working in molecular biology or microbiology or pharmaceutical, so you will get an idea what type of work they are doing, and what is their intention to work with you, or to deal with you, or to get something from you, or to collaborate with you. And on top of that one, primary source of funding. So whether the source is a federal, just only federal grants, or commercial grants, or donations from local or international donors. So federal grants. So I was just want to highlight, for example, I'm not naming any country, or I'm not taking any country's name. So, but if there is a link between the research organizations and the federal government of bad actor, or the revisionist state, there is a possible. So through these organizations, so these bad actors can achieve their goals by getting hold of the biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information. So you have to be careful, because maybe that organization is like a academic organization, and you don't think out of the box, and maybe that academic institution is systematically used by the bad actor to achieve their goals. So they might be having a link to the military. So just some thoughts I'm throwing, so you think about it. So digging deeper about the customer and gathering the more information about the customer is extremely important. So please take the note. Then customer verification, and please note that customer, I mean, when you are collecting the information, when you are doing the verification and all these things, so all these things should happen before you start working together or going in a working relationship. Because once you start, and after that one you start digging deeper and collecting the information, it will be too late. So you have to do all this due diligence and know your customer practices before you start working, or before you start working relationship with that entity or company or organization. And to make your job easy, so nowadays there are many softwares which can make your job easy to collect the information, to manage the information, to give a systematic pie charts or graphics about all these things. There are many softwares. Okay, so this one helps in reducing the biosecurity risk in a biological supply chain. And as a result of that one, bad actors or revisionist states will not be able to exploit what is there in your organization, or as a result, you will be able to protect yourself, your company, and organization. And it also, on top of that, it not only helps yourself, your organization and company, but as a whole, it helps in preventing proliferation of biological materials, equipments, and knowledge, which can be misused to develop biological weapons or chemical weapons of mass destruction. So that's why the biosecurity is very important, and practicing and promoting biosecurity best practices is need of the time. Okay, so now I'm going to highlight some examples. I will not go each line by line, but I just want to highlight some of the examples of the red flags, so which will give you an idea what does the red flag means, and how you can dig deeper to find out more information. So for example, if you're asking questions to the customer and you found that after getting the name and details of the customer, you found that customer's address is similar to one of the parties found on the national or regional or international list of the denied persons. So this one is a red flag. Okay, then that customer is reluctant to offer the information about end use of the item. Item could be biological material, it can be equipment, or something like this. So that customer is reluctant. So you have to see all this, just like a 360-degree analysis you have to do. So you should keep asking different questions to the customer, and these are some of the examples. So for example, buyer could be individual, could be company, could be organization. So that buyer could be an agent of that organization or company. So that buyer is not able to answer your questions clearly. So that means something is fishy, something is wrong. And sometimes maybe buyer's line of business is different. So for example, if a small bakery owner is ordering the sophisticated computers, it doesn't make sense. So that means somebody is using that small bakery owner to order the sophisticated computers which they cannot buy directly. So these types of tactics are always used, and this one is one example of the red flag. Then another one is a customer is willing to pay huge cash for your equipment or for your product or for your services. So this one is another example of the red flag. Then buyer is evasive when you are asking some questions, and that buyer or that agent or that person is not clear about whether that product is purchased for the domestic use or for the export or for re-export. And sometimes it could be some other cases. So for example, that person or that customer is denying the services for the regular installation or the training or the maintenance. So this one is a red flag. Maybe that customer is unfamiliar with the product's performance. So that means something is wrong. So you have to dig deeper and you have to find more information to collect more information and make sure that you are protecting yourself, your organization, and your company. So then sometimes, as I mentioned, you have to do the shipping, as well as you have to deal with the shippers or the transport transport service providers. So if the package is inconsistent with the stated methods, so that means something is wrong. Or maybe sometimes deliveries are planned for out of the way destination, or the product's final destination is freight forwarding firm. So this one is a very clear red flag, means something is not right. And on top of that, so that customer have a little or no business background. So these all are examples of the red flags. So watch out for these red flags. So these are some examples, but from your product perspective, your biological material perspective, your equipment perspective, so you should keep on asking questions so you can gather more information as a part of your know your customer and due diligence program, and then nothing will go wrong. So for sure. So you have to be very careful when you are dealing with any agent or any customer or any organization or collaborator. So as a stakeholder of the biotech supply chain, or as a stakeholder of the biological supply chain, so we need to do our part. Doesn't matter we are in manufacturing, or maybe you are in a research institute, or maybe you are in a logistic operators domain. So we need to do our part in protecting illicit proliferation of biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, because that one is important in order to prevent the proliferation of biological and chemical weapons proliferation, which is important from a global perspective. Okay, so now I will highlight applying high reliability organization principles. So how you can make your organization more reliable. So now it can be done by, applying the principles, because you have to bear in mind when you are applying the high reliability organization principles, there are a number of benefits for the organization or the company. And one of the advantage or one of the benefit is it helps to minimize the biosecurity risk. So for this purpose, applying each and every organization should try to apply the high reliability principles in your organization. And bear in mind, a risk is never ever zero. I repeat again, risk is never ever zero. So some risk will be always there. That one we call residual risk, but that one is within the acceptable range. So now the question is, what are the high reliability organizations principles? So principle number 1, compliance to procedures. So the compliance to the procedures should be strict compliance to the procedures. So as I mentioned before, when you will take any incidents related to the biosecurity, related incidents in the laboratory or in your supply chain or in manufacturing or in your logistic operations. So when you will dig deeper from biosecurity perspective, you will always realize that the non-compliance is the main purpose. So for that purpose, you have to make sure that the strict compliance to the procedure is practiced by each and every organization. This one is principle number 1. Principle number 2, depth of knowledge. Depth of knowledge, if your staff, your employees, or the people, those are working for your organization or company, if they are not competent enough, if they are not skillful enough, how they can do the know your practices and due diligence job properly. So you have to train them time to time. You have to make them competent enough. You have to enhance their skill set. So as a result of that one, they can work for your company, organization, and they can minimize the biosecurity risk by identifying the red flags. Principle number 3, integrity and accountability. This one is extremely important because finger pointing doesn't work when it comes to the biosecurity. So for mitigating the biosecurity risks, we need to inculcate the culture of the accountability. We need to bring in the culture of the accountability and integrity. So the person who is responsible should be able to own up to the mistakes. Then principle number 4 is forceful backup. Each stakeholder of the biological supply chain should think about themselves, their organization, their company, and there should be a support across the ranks. So that one helps not only to protect yourself, but community, organization, company, as well as the country, because your country's reputation can go down if something bad happens in your organization or company. So that one is also associated with the branding of the country. So that one is important. Then principle number 5, questioning attitude. So if you are working in a purchasing department or procuring department, or you are working in a R&D section or manufacturing, or doesn't matter where you work in a biological supply chain or in a research center or in academia or industry, you should have a questioning attitude. That one can solve many problems because double checking gives the right information and you can make the right decision. And principle number 6 is humility in communication. So this all communication should be done in a prescribed manner, and right communication, effective communication, can help to bring all the stakeholders. Those are important for your company or organization, so you can bring them on the same page, and systematically you can implement the program to minimize not only the biosecurity risk, but other risks also you have for your organization. So you can make your organization more reliable. And as a result of that one, you can harvest number of benefits. So more about it, you will learn in a non-synchronous online course. Okay. So while implementing while applying the high reliability organization principles, so the culture of excellence is extremely important. Not only important, it's essential if you want to really work hard for your organization to make it a high reliable organization. So culture of excellence is very important. Then if you are putting in all these principles in practice, so you can correct many deviations before disaster happens. And that's why creating a deep awareness about the vulnerabilities of the biological supply chain is very important from a biosecurity perspective. So the picture which I have shown here just to pass the message, because we should have an attitude, it's our problem. We should not say, no, it's your job, why I should worry. So it's our problem. We should work together, and we should mitigate the biosecurity risk, which is important for ourselves, for our organization, company, country and global community. So, most important is each and every institution, organization, company, or entity should take the efforts to implement these high reliability organization principles. It will help to mitigate the biosecurity risks significantly. So the last part, I'm just going to highlight quickly the due diligence best practices importance. As I mentioned before, doing the due diligence is not a rocket science. This one is a very straightforward, and anybody with a good training can do the due diligence about the company or customer or organization or your agent who is asking for some products or equipments or biological materials. So it's a simple 3-step process. So what you can do is when you are doing the due diligence, so for your organization, because you can take the right decision if you have a good know your practices and due diligence program in place. So you can just assess the impact of the unprioritized due diligence programs in your organization, and you can think of the legal consequences, reputational consequences, operational interruptions, and the consequences. And once you do that one, then you can identify the characteristics of key indicators. It can be done within your organization or within your company, with your customers. It can be done with your service providers or vendors or suppliers or collaborators. And once that one is done, so finally you can determine what is the, where your organization stands, determine your organization's compliance risk. And in the process, you need to consider the people, employees, as well as, all stakeholders, processes and procedures, as well as technology. And just a thumb rule, when you are collecting systematically the information, screening it and recording it. So the basic information, for example, who is the owner of that entity who is asking for the equipment or biological material, or some sensitive information, what type of the methods they are using for the financing, what type of the, if it's an operator, logistic operator, so what type of the transport system they have, whether they have all essential elements in place, you have to think about it. Then what is the final destination, whether they are on sanctions list, then end user, who is the end user, and what is the end use. So all these fundamental questions, I'm just highlighting, so is a part of the due diligence process. And as a part of the information management for the due diligence best practices, so you also need to monitor, evaluate, and verify time to time. So for example, whether that customer is on the different lists, those are highlighting the bad actors or bad entities, whether they are on sanctions list, maybe they have a trade ban, or they have restrictions, or you can look into the business registries or trade publications or international publications which highlights the corruption indices. Then you can also look for the local or international media. You can also look into geo-located data using web mapping tools. You can also look for the corporate registries. And by looking into all this, that's why I told you this one is not a rocket science. Anybody who is trained properly can do the due diligence very effectively. Okay, so it can be done systematically if organization or company is really serious. So for the, using the know your customer and due diligence best practices. So the ultimate aim of implementing know your customer and due diligence is prevent the unauthorized access to the biological materials, equipment, and sensitive information, to make sure that we will not lose it, somebody will not steal it, or somebody will not misuse it. So the important strategy from both academic and industrial settings. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that your biorisk management system is working. So in case if you don't have biorisk management, you take the initiative and you should implement you should take the initiative to implement the biorisk management system, because that one can help a lot for the organization to avoid the disasters. And ultimate here goal is to safeguard the dual-use biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, which is important not only for your organization, but it's important for the global community from biosecurity perspective. So, important thing is that it's not necessary you should have everything sophisticated to implement all these practices, biosecurity best practices. It can be done from your perspective or what is there in your organization, what is important. So based on that one, you can do. It's not necessary you need high resources or heavy investment. So ladies and gentlemen, so I'm just going to summarize this webinar. So I have 5 important messages for you. So my message number 1 is when you are working in when you are working in a academic setting or industrial setting. So when you are dealing with your biorisk management, bear in mind, we need to integrate know your customer and due diligence best practices in our biorisk management system to strengthen or to boost biosecurity best practices. My message number 2 is a robust biosecurity risk assessment is extremely important, because generally, depends on situation or depends on in which country you are located. So you have to make sure that you are doing a biosecurity risk in a robust way, because if the biosecurity risk is not done in a robust way, the control measures which you are taking will not be effective and you cannot achieve what you want to really achieve. So for this purpose, bear in mind a robust biorisk assessment is very important. Message number 3 is we need to promote biosecurity best practices. It is extremely important, ladies and gentlemen, because if we don't practice biosecurity best practices, there is always possibility the bad actors and their agents or the revisionist state can misuse the dual-use biological materials, equipment, and knowledge. And in case if we fail to implement the biosecurity best practices and if the bad actors becomes a winner, then there will be many disasters. Keep in mind, not only for the people, but for the environment, for the animal, for the One Health, and the consequences will be terrible. So I think with the help of this experience of the ongoing global pandemic, you can understand what can happen. I mean, it's not a man-made, it's a natural outbreak, but it's possible when somebody, bad actors, when they are using biological materials, equipment, and knowledge, and if the misuse is done, so something can happen as a result of our failure to practice biosecurity best practices. So my message number 4 is we need to educate all the stakeholders, those are in the biological supply chain, to make sure that they are competent enough, they are skillful enough to practice the biosecurity best practices, do the due diligence, and take the program, know your customer and due diligence to the next level. And this is my last message. So from the global perspective, so my point here is doesn't matter you are in academia or in industry or any organization which is involved in handling the biological materials, equipment, and sensitive knowledge, biosecurity sensitive knowledge. So if you are taking the initiatives and if you are practicing the biosecurity best practices, so nothing will go wrong in your institution. So if nothing goes wrong in your institution, and if all the institutions are practicing these biosecurity best practices, so that means there will be no any problem in that particular country. So that means at national level, there is no any biosecurity issue. And if there is no any biosecurity issue at national level in all member states of United Nations, can you think how the situation will be at the global level? So that means there will be no issue at the international level. I know this one is extremely challenging and extremely difficult to achieve, but when you think from the humanity perspective, this is possible, and actually the global community should work for it to have a global biosecurity, which is important for each and everybody. So I think with this, I just want to highlight again what you have learned in this webinar. You have learned biological threat landscape. You have learned importance of integrated virus management, various elements of biosecurity. You have in the second part, you have learned role of academia, industry in preventing the proliferation of biological materials, equipment, and biosecurity sensitive knowledge. So you have learned challenges in the biological supply chains. You have learned objectives and methods of the nefarious states, and you also learn importance of know your customer best practices. And in the third part, you have learned the importance of establishing a resilient and high reliability organization, which is important for the global security. You learn identifying the red flags and some examples of red flags and principles which can make your organization highly reliable. And you also learn importance of due diligence best practices. So before I stop my presentation, I want to take this opportunity to thank Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, Department of Health, Philippines, for hosting this webinar. And last but not least, I want to especially thank CRDF Global for giving me this excellent opportunity to talk with the participants. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attention. I'm done. So Christopher, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. So I know we had at least one question. Let me see. All right, so Mr. Kanoy, I believe it is, you wanted to ask a question. So feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like, and you're welcome to ask whatever question you'd like.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I can hear. Yeah.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, Dr. Bor, for that very comprehensive and actually enlightening webinar. Indeed, I learned a lot from it. So again, my name is Dr. Reynan Canoy. I am the laboratory director at Siler Asia Pacific. So actually, I used to work in a laboratory where we use CRISPR to knock out or knock in some genes. So the nice thing about CRISPR is that it is very easy to implement. So with simple and ordinary gene cloning protocols and equipment, one can actually easily perform loss of or gain of function experiments. So actually my question is, do you think that CRISPR or any other gene editing tool can be a biosecurity risk? And second, if so, would you know if there is a current effort in the national or international community to somehow control or provide guidelines in employing gene editing tools in the laboratory? And lastly, what roles do we have in the academe or in the industry to make sure that CRISPR or any other gene editing tool cannot be used by people with bad intentions or by these so-called nefarious state actors? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your question. I think this question is extremely important because as we make a progress in modern biotechnology, so this of course this gene editing technology is extremely important, which can help us to develop a solution to have a remedy for a number of diseases. But at the same time, as you mentioned, so this technology can be misused. The chances are always there. So risk is there. So for example, if you take the some examples of the international conventions or regulations or the resolutions. So international community, which is working on the regulatory to make sure that the regulatory mechanism is there to regulate the products and services of the biotechnology. I mean, some general guidelines are there in the public domain, but act-wise, I'm not sure I mean, the general treaties and conventions and all these things do specify modern biotechnology. So this gene editing is a part of modern biotechnology. So it is already covered in some treaties, some international conventions. I think, case is very clear because this gene editing comes under the modern biotechnology, and this modern biotechnology is already covered under the some of the instruments, some of the international legal framework. I think it's not an issue. So there is no need to have a separate, I mean, this one is my personal perspective. So there is no any separate, there is no need to have a separate act or separate law for just for the gene editing technology. So this one is already covered, but some time to time we always do the amendments in the existing instruments or existing conventions or existing treaties. So international community is aware of the dangers in gene editing and these new techniques, including gene technology, which can there is one term I don't recall. There is one term, gene therapy. Yeah, gene therapy. So there are a number of applications, and this gene editing tools gives a wonderful opportunity to find a solution for a number of human diseases. But at the same time, it can be misused. So I think as the technology evolves, at the same time, the regulatory mechanism also evolves, and the global community is aware of that one, and they are working on that one. But I'm not sure, is there any specific act or law which is dealing with that one? I mean, in my reading, I didn't see any that type of any law, but my personal impression is because there are some treaties, those are already in place, which treats everything which comes under the modern biotechnology. So that one is this technology can come under these types of the instruments or international conventions. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So maybe for my last question, really, what roles do you think do we have from the academe or the industry to make sure that CRISPR is not or cannot be used by bad people or these nefarious state actors? Because indeed, I don't know if they have already realized it, because it is very easy to implement CRISPR. One can just easily insert a gene into a cell line and no. Yes, and that's my actually last question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This one is also a very important question, because I was serving as a chairman of Institutional Biosafety Committee for 6 years. So I know the problem. So when in academia or in industry, so when research proposal is coming, because before it goes for the research funding to the funding bodies, it comes to the research, Institutional Biosafety and Biosecurity Committee, isn't it? For the screening purpose. So if all the members for the Institutional Biosafety Committee or the Institutional Biosafety and Biosecurity Committee, in some institutions they call Research Review Committee, name can be anything. So, but in each and every academic institution or the company, there will be one committee which screens the research proposals before it goes to the funders. So during that time, if the members of that committee, if they are competent enough, if they are skillful enough, so by asking relevant question, what is the purpose of starting that project, what they want to achieve, with whom they are collaborating, then is there any need to transfer some biological material to the collaborators laboratory, or if you want to do something like this one. So means by asking fundamental questions and logical questions to the principal investigator, why they want to go ahead with that project and what they want to achieve and who are the collaborators. So easily you can find out the truth behind that project. And in case if that one is intended to solve some problems of the human diseases or to get some answers to the fundamental biological questions, nothing is wrong to go ahead, because just because of the biosecurity risk, we cannot stop the fundamental research. So you need to, but in case if there are elements of the biosecurity in that project, then you have to see the purpose and whether it's really worth to start that one, and is there any immediate risk, or the risk can be mitigated by putting in the biosecurity control measures to make sure that nothing will go wrong. So I think that one all relies on the Institutional Biosafety Committee or Institutional Biosafety and Biosecurity Committee to decide on that one, because not simply anybody can just send the direct project proposal for the funding to the funders. So there are in between there are stumbling blocks. So it need to go through the this proper screening procedures, and as a result of that one, we can make sure that whatever research is done or undertaken in the academia, by academia or industry, is not going to create biosecurity problems or will not result into any disaster. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Does anyone else have any further questions they would like to ask? We have about 9 minutes, I believe, in the scheduled call today. Okay. Seeing no questions, if you want to, do you want to say anything about the next steps that participants can take, say, with any additional trainings that you've created or work, so that, you know, I know it's a little late there, so we want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's time. So is there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Christopher. So with the participants, I just want to highlight, so the next step will be a non-synchronous online course. And in the non-synchronous online course, there are 12 different modules. So altogether, it will take 4 hours and 20 minutes to complete. And this next phase of this remote training is at the participant space, means as long as you have a device and internet, so you can complete step by step when you are free. You can watch it when you are free, when your time permits, and you will be given a certain time. So I think you will get an email from CRDF Global. So you can complete in 1 week or 10 days, depends on time given. And I'm confident enough that one will be useful for you to learn something about the biosecurity best practices, and you can apply these biosecurity best practices in your organization or company, and hopefully it will promote the biosecurity best practices. And I really need your help, because limited number of participants were approved by CRDF Global, and like other webinars, we didn't publicize on social media or in publicly. So this one was done without marketing or without much that that type of the advertising. So I really need your help. So when you are going back to your organization, when you are going back to your university or department, please. We are going to send this recorded video as well as PowerPoint slides to you. So please try to organize a training program, or you can give a talk, or you can summarize this talk, or if you want to wish, you can play the this video with your colleagues, and you can see how you can improve biosecurity best practices in your organization. So in the future, hope we can come face to face. So, but this one is a part of the remote training. And after that non-synchronous online course, we will have a tabletop exercise. So that one will be just like this webinar, 2 hours program. And I will give some examples, and I will walk you through the last step. So I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to get your feedback. So I think a feedback link will be coming to you very soon. So I really need your feedback so I can improve further myself. And there is always room to improve. So I don't think I'm perfect. So please give your honest comments and help us to improve further, because CRDF Global is doing a wonderful job to educate the people for the global biosecurity, and I think we should contribute in their mission. Yeah, thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Dr. Sepesh. We really appreciate your kind words there. We did have a question in the chat about global movements to require, I believe it's academics to have IBC credentialing. Do you have any thoughts about that question?
Let me check. Are there any global movements to require academia to have IBC? Oh, this one is interesting question. So because you know the Cartagena Protocol, you know some international regulatory mechanism. I mean, you will learn more in non-synchronous online course, but I just want to highlight. So because in line with the international treaties, each and every country, which is a part of the United Nations, so they need to develop local scenario compatible acts to protect the genetically modified material, living modified organisms, as well as modern biotechnology services and products. So one of the condition in that act is each and every academic institution need to establish institutional biosafety committee. It's a mandatory. And they need to register with the Department of Biosafety. I mean, different country names can be different. It can be a Department of Biosafety or it can be something else, but they need to register with the authority. And at least once in a year, you have to do the inspection of your, I mean, labs what you have, and you have to submit a systematic report about the, I mean, they have the systematic reporting form. So this one is legally mandatory. In some countries, those have just recently what you call incorporated this act or law. So maybe they are a little bit lenient, but legally, I mean, in Malaysia, it's legally binding because institutions need to have an institutional biosafety committee, and whatever type of research they have or they are doing, which comes under the genetic modification or living modified organisms. So they have to report the details to the Department of Biosafety. Department of Biosafety is a nodal sector, I mean, node of the point of contact between the ministry, which is in charge of this implementation of act, and research institutions, including academia, biotech companies, devoted organizations, or anybody who is handling the living modified organisms or genetically modified materials, working on that one, or importing or exporting. So they have to do the reporting, and that one is legally binding. Thank you very much for asking this question. This one, because I was doing it for 6 years. So thank you very much.
It looks like there's also a follow-up question about the function of IBC.
Does the function of IBC includes the review of researchers that involve microorganisms? Yes, answer is yes. So for example, when the project proposal comes from the principal investigator, so we always look for, are there any microorganisms involved? If yes, but immediately you should not make a conclusion, because for example, if you know how the molecular biology works, so for example, in molecular biology, we use a E. coli DH5 alpha strain. That one is relatively harmless. So that one we use because that one is a substitute. I mean, we are not using anthrax. So we are using E. coli DH5 alpha. So in that case, risk is very low. So definitely we look for what type of the microorganisms are used in that project, what type of the, I mean, other biological material, is there any risk for the researchers, those are going to work on this project, and other elements will also we consider. I mean, the institution will have a evaluation form, and the committee sits together to screen the project proposal, and they find out the overall risk of that project. Because if you don't have the facility to conduct that research work in your organization, definitely you cannot bring in Ebola or that type of dangerous microorganisms in your organization, because you don't have facility. So which type of microorganisms are handled or will be handled in that project, that one is important. So yes, the answer is yes. those microorganisms or the pathogens, those are in all, are considered during the screening process. And based on that one, the institutional biosafety and biosecurity committee takes the decision. And if the green signal is given by the committee, then it goes to the next stage. Otherwise, it cannot go, because institutional committee's responsibility is to protect the researchers, to protect the organization, to protect the students, or those are stakeholders of the university or the company. I mean, depends on where you are working. So it's on behalf of the head of the institution. Institutional biosafety committee acts on behalf of the head of the institution, and that one is taken care of. So, but it depends how competent people are there in the institutional biosafety and biosecurity committee. That one is a question mark. So it depends on institution, it depends on companies. So there are a number of factors, and the overall process, I mean, it's not rocket science, but organization, if it's a seriously if his organization is serious about the biosecurity of the organization, or researchers, or the people, those are in all. So definitely they will put the right person in charge, and that person takes care of all these procedures. So that's why the training is very important. And I'm very happy this CRDF Global is promoting these types of projects. So this one is really needed, because all stakeholders are aware of all these practices and loopholes in the system, so then we can minimize the risk of the biosecurity, and it will be helpful for everybody, because we have to protect each other. And I think I'm happy all these participants are asking this question. So thank you very much for asking this question. So you all these questions are very, very relevant and very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Subhash. I know we're at time, so let's just make this the final question. There was one last follow-up about any restrictions in terms of the study of pathogenic organisms. So I'm assuming this may be in the Philippine Academy or in a broader sense, but I think we'll make this the last question so that everyone can log off at close to the originally planned time. And if you have any further questions, you can email them to the email address that you received the webinar invitation from, and we will make sure to get them to Dr. Subhash. So do you have any thoughts on this final question?
Yeah, so thank you, Christopher. So this one in question is from Maria. So thank you very much for asking this question. So pathogenic organism, just now I was talking about. So which types of pathogens you are handling? So because if you know how the trend is there in the virus management. So previously everybody was thinking about and talking about BSL-1, BSL-2, BSL-3, BSL-4. So that one was just like a prescription based. So, but now the biosecurity professionals fully agree that it should be on need based. So what type of pathogens you are handling and other factors you need to consider, and based on the needs, you have to put in the mitigation measures for the both biosafety, biosecurity, and based on that one you can proceed. So definitely it doesn't matter, even though it's a BSL-2 facility or BSL-3 or BSL-4, or even though you don't have that type of designation properly or clearly, because there is some deviation in some countries. So it should be need based. So that one is the trend in the virus management. So based on what type of pathogens, just now some time ago I have given an example. So E. coli is also considered as a pathogen in some cases, because if you take the natural strain of the E. coli, so I mean it's not very dangerous, but it can disturb the digestive system of the person. So but in case if you are talking about the dangerous pathogens like Ebola or high-risk pathogens, so definitely simply you cannot bring all these pathogens in your institution and you can start simply straightforward working, because there is some rules and regulations on which type of microorganisms you can work. So for example, those are very highly dangerous. I don't think your organization will allow you to bring in these types of pathogens, and that one is important as far as the regulatory mechanism is concerned. That's why each and every academic institution, company, academia, industry, those are working on biological materials, means including pathogens, including biological materials, toxins or their derivatives. So they have to report what type of the pathogens you have in your institution. So if something goes wrong by accident, or if something happens, so the country will have the emergency response team. So they will have this information, how to deal with that one. So simply straightforward, without anybody's knowledge, you cannot bring in dangerous pathogens in your organization. So it needs, some permissions, and it needs to be reported to the authorities. So I hope I have answered your question, Maria.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. And as I want to reiterate that if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to email them back to using the email address that you received your webinar invitation from, and we'll be sure to get them back to Dr. Subhash for any further comments or questions. So, all right. So thank you all for being here. We look forward to sharing the information with you later probably next week, early next week. And we hope you all stay safe and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Dr. Subhash, again for a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.